Hello friends, so it's been a little while, but I've been busy working on some big updates for the game. As you saw from the title, I just got a new drawing tablet, and it's taken me some time to learn how to use it. Since I've never really worked on animations before, I wanted to start with something simple, so I looked up some tutorials and tried making the standard bouncy ball animation. And I think it turned out alright. So having successfully completed the most basic of animation tasks, I decided I was ready to take on something a little more complicated, and immediately jumped into attack animations. It went about as well as you would expect. Basically, I spent a few hours trying to make a nice, detailed sketch of the main character, and then I realized, oh, I would have to make dozens of these for a single animation. So I decided to just stick with stick figures for now. I'd like to gradually upgrade the artwork over time, but it doesn't make much sense to devote a ton of time to it at this stage. As long as I can generally understand what's going on in the animations, that's good enough. Anyway, the other thing I've been working on is updating the existing combat scripts because they were kind of garbage. See, the way that it worked before, in order to attack, the player combat script was calling a method from the card manager, which calls a method from the card that the player wants to use, and then that card calls a method from the player combat script. Now you may be wondering, why would you do such a thing? And that's a great question, so I decided to refactor all of that to be less of a confusing mess. Now it's much simpler. The player combat script just calls the attack method with the selected card as one of the inputs, and then it calls a different method from the card manager to sort out all the card system stuff. On the surface, it does exactly the same thing that it was doing before, but now it should be much easier to add new attacks in the future. And speaking of new attacks, you may have noticed that there's a weird ghost thing with a scythe sticking out of the main character now. This was actually the plan all along, I just started with something easier to program before. The story is, the main character's soul has become separated from her body, but she can still control both independently due to some magic nonsense that I won't get into right now. In terms of gameplay, I want the player to be able to attack with both the body and soul at the same time in order to pull off some cool combos. For now, the attacks are pretty much the same as what they were before, but the melee attacks are performed by the soul, while the ranged attacks are performed by the body, which happens to have a gun now. I did make a few small changes to the attacks though. Before, they all used a circular hitbox to detect enemies at the start of the animation, which worked well enough, but it felt weird because the enemies would take damage before the character actually hits them. Now the attacks have more dynamic hitboxes that are only active during the actual attack part of the animation, which feels much more natural. Also, I updated the fourth part of the basic attack combo to throw the scythe, which goes through enemies instead of just stopping after the first hit. I wanted the finisher to feel a bit more impactful than just dealing extra damage, but I'll probably continue tweaking it because it's kind of too powerful now. Oops. I have some ideas on how to balance it, but that's for a later update. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm planning on adding some new attacks soon, so let me know if you have any cool ideas for weapons or spells. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!